Hi, everybody. Hi, Angie. It is a gorgeous day in Paris. Actually, in the sun, it's a bit on the hot side. So I'm going to kind of keep over in the shade a bit as much as we can. We'll give everybody a minute or two to get here. And I thought I'd come here today and find a chair, but it's because it's so beautiful and tomorrow's a holiday, there's not a lot of seats available. Hey, Chrissy. Hi, Sharon. So good to see you all here. Look how nice it is out. Look at that. Gorgeous. Oh, you can see the shadow, the outline of the statues. Renee, you're here. You're not in your exercise class. Oh, how could I almost obscure her ladyship over here? Hey, Jean. Look at how lovely she looks over there. Got the obelisk. So I don't need to tell you all where I am. I'm sure you all know. This is up here. I'm in the Tuileries. But of course, this is the Place de la Concorde. They're working on a bunch of the statues. A few of the ladies are not covered. Oh, Renee, you're so good. Thanks so much. So a bunch of them here are covered up because they're doing. This is part of yet another project Anne Hidalgo has. They're going to revamp this area, add some trees, some green space, trying to get rid of all the cars out of central Paris, which is great if you're a walker. Not so great if you're a driver and you need to get places. And you, of course, have the Hotel de la Marine over here. You have the Crillon to the left. And I don't know if you guys saw my stories that I posted from yesterday morning. I came up here early and the firemen were here running around. But I pretended it was about the building behind them. I mean, I just am trying to give what the people want. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. So today, I wanted to do this today because you know how much I love my girl Rose Vallon and any chance I have to talk about her. Well, today is the 80th anniversary of a pretty horrific event that happened right here, just right up here to the right of us. And it was when a giant pile of about 400 paintings considered to be degenerate art were set on fire. So this was on May 28th in 1943, in the midst of the of World War II. And here we are at the Jeu de Paume. So the Jeu de Paume is a museum now. It's a museum basically dedicated to contemporary photography. But at one point, it was the depot where all of the art that was looted from Jewish galleries and Jewish homeowners. Some people, some of the art that they took um, was from people that were not Jewish, but a majority of it because that was easy for them to take because they could say, we're taking this because either you have left your home and you left everything behind, which of course they had to, or else they were going to get arrested and sent to a camp. But majority of everything that they took was from Jewish owners. And so this building itself, the Jeu de Paume, there's a Jeu de Paume out at Versailles as well. But it was an early form of what we know as tennis. So today, as this weekend starts, the Roland Garros, the French Open starts. And so this was an earlier form of tennis. And it was, I believe it was just played with your hand, which doesn't sound so great. But this building itself was built in 1861 by Napoleon III, and you could kind of guess that because at the top you see the N, the initials for Napoleon up there. And of course, you have the imperial eagle at the top. So this was for a short period of time until 1909. And in 1909, it was changed into the exhibit space. So it's an exhibit space here until the 1920s. And then it was a specific exhibition center. And then they decided to use it for an extension of the Musée de Luxembourg, which for a long period of time, the Musée de Luxembourg was known as the Museum of Living Artists. Because for the Louvre, you had to be dead for 10 years before you could be displayed in the Louvre, unless you were my man, Delacroix, and he was able to get onto the ceiling of the Galerie d'Apollon. But the Luxembourg was a very small museum. If you go in there today, it's actually a little larger than it even used to be because they added on a side to it. But this was an extension of it. And then after World War II, this from 1947 till 1986, this is where all the Impressionists were. So when you go to the Orsay and you go up to the fifth floor and you see those Impressionists, they actually at one point were all in here in this building. So it's kind of a pretty cool historic building. But during World War II, this is where all the art came from, too. And it was sat here until it was sent to Austria, to Germany, to salt mines, to be locked away. And I'll tell you some more about that, but I'll show you here real quick. This lovely plaque, that this is all she has, and it was not given until the day after my birthday in 2005. I think it's a little bit late considering what my gal Rose Vallon did. And Jacques Joujar, I love him. He was the director of the National Museums, and he's the one who spearheaded emptying the Louvre, as you, I'm sure, remember from a few weeks ago. But at least her name is bigger, and it's in the middle. But this is all. I did actually notice. I'll walk over here real quick. They have a really great library in here. Um, if you're into contemporary photographs, it's a good one to see. I've been in before because I wanted to just go into the building where she worked. And of course, it's completely different from what it was then. But on the side here, it actually has some books. Look, and I think I actually, look at this. Look at, there she is. These are all in French. The woman who saved 60 pieces of art from the Nazis. And I actually brought some show and tell, some books, but since we can't really sit down, I don't know if I could really show you, but maybe we'll have a spot someplace that I could show you because I have this really cool book about Rose that has some great black and white photos in it. But we're going to walk back over here and we'll kind of go over here into where it's nice and breezy and cool. It's incredibly windy. So when I left my apartment, I was having a very good hair day. You know how important that is. And I'm sure that's now ruined because it's so windy. But I thought I'd come over here. There's some people playing petanque. Um, how's the picture today? Because I have my fancy, oh no, not coffee, it's again. I have my fancy new phone, and I'm hoping that the image is better here. Getting some water real quick so I don't have another. I think it's the dust here. Oh, hi, Debbie. Ron and Debbie. Look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? So you might wonder exactly what constitutes as degenerate art. A degenerate art was anything that specifically Hitler and the Nazis deemed to be unworthy. And this was art that they thought was threatening the German way of life. He thought it was threatening to what people, to their senses. Paintings to them must be pleasing, and they must be pleasing to the eye. So they were mostly like portraits and still lives. And I was just trying to put a cough drop in my mouth and it flew on the floor. They were trying to, it just had to be, these still lifes and landscapes, but they also hated Impressionism. And Impressionism is, as we know, were landscapes really came into play. The period just right before that, you'd start to see some landscape paintings, but really it was something that was done later because en plein air outside. And you're doing a lot of that early on. So Hitler, anything, and he did this in 1933. He decided because he wanted to go to art school and he tried to enroll in the Vienna Academy and he was refused. And so I think he was just an angry little bitter man. And maybe if he had gotten into art school, a lot of lives could have been saved. Maybe they should have just given him a degree, said, come on in. But he was actually a pretty good artist when it came to architecture. And you could find some of his pictures, paintings that he did online. There's none on display in the world. Washington, D.C., a museum in D.C. has some in their collection, but those will never see the light of day because you can't have people will go in there and who knows if they start to worship at his paintings or something horrible will happen. And so he he was denied that, and then he ended up getting some of the best art scholars he could find, and he brought them in and he had them tell him what he needed to find. So he was like, "You get me a list of the best art that's all over Europe, and so that I know where that is." And so they put these massive books together, and you can still see some of those today online. And they don't have all of them. There was like 2 dozen of these books that were made for him, but he would then know where to go in Europe. So he would say, "Okay, well, I need to go to Poland and go to this museum and go steal the lady with the ermine and everything like that." And so he was just this frustrated little jerk of a artist. So we started to go through Europe, and we kind of, I don't need to tell you what happens next. But so he deemed any of this to be degenerate. And so in 1933, he went in and told people to go into the museums in Germany and take out anything that they believed wasn't worthy to be of for a German eyes to see. So they went in and took 2,000 paintings out of the German museums. Then in 1935, they started to go do that to actual just German collectors and German homes and saying, you can't have these things and taking them out. They ended up putting up for auction and saying that all of this money is going to go to the museums of Germany. But of course, it didn't. They just kept all the money. But in 1937, from July 19th to November 30th, 1937, they held a exhibition, and it was the exhibition of degenerate art. And this had 600 pieces in it, and they put these on display, and they put it in like they found this room, a couple rooms that were up some teeny tiny staircases, and they put them in there and they made makeshift walls. They hung the paintings from the ceiling with just ropes, and they even they didn't put frames on some of them. They put Nazi propaganda slogans on the walls. They mismarked paintings. They would say in their comments about how ugly it was and all of these things, and they made it actually specifically horrible because they wanted to show people that this was not what you wanted to see. But it kind of backfired because in that period of time, for those few months, more than 2 million people came to see this. In fact, the last month of it, they had to have it open 24 hours a day because so many people wanted to come in here and see the art. But they also paid for it. They paid for the entrance, and so the Germans made more money. But they were a little bit mad because they thought people are supposed to hate this. So they were going. So then Hitler would go into other museums and go into other countries and do the same thing. And so they were just taking all of this art that they could, because they were trying to, as we know, cleanse the world. And this extended past art. This was also music. This was literature. This was plays, anything. So, sound familiar? Tried to just basically erase all of these things. And so it just didn't end. So then down the road, they get to, it gets to 1939, and they're starting to push their way across Europe, and they're getting closer to France. And that is when our wonderful man, Jacques Joujar, and all the other people that worked to save the Louvre sprung into action and got everything out of there. Well, our girl Rose Vallon here, she was here over at the Jeu de Paume, and at first she was just a volunteer. So she was hired here in 1932, working here, and she, I've talked about her a million times. We did a podcast episode about her in the first year, and she was incredibly intelligent. She could remember a million different languages. She could learn them really quickly. So she spoke German, and the Germans didn't know that. So she was just here in the Jeu de Paume, just right here behind us in that building, just in here working every day, pretending that she didn't speak German, and then hearing everything that they were saying, going home every night and filling up these journals with all of the information about the art, who it was stolen from, the name of the art, the artist, the number on the crate that, and also where that train car was going. And so, with that, because of that, the monuments men later and the Allied forces were able to use her notes to find and return 60,000 pieces of art. So, 20% of the art of Europe was stolen by the Nazis. And when you think of the Louvre today, and the Louvre 80 years ago, of course, didn't have as much as it does now. Now, today, you have 35,000 pieces of art on display in the Louvre. Just think of what 20% of that is, but then take every museum in Europe, counting London. So, countries like Poland and everything that they just were decimating everything, taking everything. But luckily for here, they did not get to the Louvre, but they stole all these things from households, Jewish households, and Jewish galleries. So there was one gentleman that was right under Hitler. He was actually his second in command. He would be his successor if he had had one, and that was Oren Goering. And Goering was he was a great military man in World War One and kind of rised up in the ranks, but he was also a big appreciator of art. So Hitler sent him because Hitler was going to be to the reason why he wanted to steal all this art, not just because he was incredibly greedy, but because he wanted to create the Fuhrer Museum in Linz. And this was going to be one of the biggest museums in the world, and it was going to have everything in the world that was the best and what he deemed to be the best. So he was this is what part of the job was. So Oren Goering came to Paris. He came here more than 20 times between 1941 and 1944. And he would come here to the Jeu de Paume. And they would set the Jeu de Paume up like a gallery. And they would even go in there like he was shopping, just like he was going to, to Target and being like, oh, I need to just pick a few things up. He'd go in there and just pick one thing up after another. And so he would take these things back. Half of it, he said, half was for him, half was for Hitler. But the difference was is that Goring didn't have a problem with degenerate art. Had Hitler known that, or German officials had known that, they'd be pretty ticked off at him. But he didn't have a problem with that. And so degenerate art was anything that was cubist, Fauvism, post-impressionism, impression, surrealism, the Dada movement, all those things were considered degenerate art. So you've got Picasso, Matisse, Chagall, just to name a few of the three hugest ones. Of course, there was also a lot of German artists that were also Jewish, and those guys were kind of at the top of the list as well. And so when Goring was coming here to Paris, and he'd come to the Jeu de Paume, and he'd uh, see Rose Vallon. And if you've seen that movie Monuments Men, which there's never anything wrong with the movie that has George Clooney in it, but it's a little annoying because they really dumbed down her character. And even though Kate Blanchett, who's an amazing actress, they changed the name, made it so she was just based on her, kind of has her chasing after Matt Damon's character, James Roeder. But in reality, she was a lesbian, and she was also that she just never would have been like that because everything to her was work, and it was her work, and it was her, protecting this art and learning everything she could. And so, and if it wasn't for her, the Monuments Men wouldn't have been able to do 85% of what they did. So it's a little frustrating that they kind of changed her character that way. But if you see the movie, read the book by Robert Edsel about the actual Monuments Men because it's really, really fantastic. And in the movie, Goring, the actor that plays Goring, comes to the Jus de Palma. She goes in the back because he wants champagne, and she pretends to, and she spits in the glass. And it's like, yeah, good job. But so he would come here. And so this night on May 28th, 1943, they had so much of this degenerate art that they didn't know what to even do with it. So they put it out here, just right over there where those girls were sitting, right on the other side of these bushes. They put this huge pile of it and set it on fire. And Rose in her journal say that she just, because she couldn't do anything, there was nothing she could do. She just stood back and watched it in horror as it was all being burned, which I cannot even imagine. My friend Camille, who has, they are the Comité de Jacqueline Marval, who was an amazing artist at the beginning of the 20th century, and some of her art. She has found one or two of her paintings might have been in there as well. But this also includes Van Gogh, and as I said, Picasso. It's just astounding to think of, some of these things that were lost. And so many paintings that were lost, they've never been recovered. There's, information and references to these paintings, and we just don't know where they are. Sometimes they pop up again in collections, or somebody has it in a garage, or they have it in an attic, and they have no idea that's actually a real painting. But it's still, hopefully some of those things show up again. And there's some pretty famous ones that have never been found as well. So now we're going to go and hang out over here. We're going to walk down. We're going to go onto this side of the Tuileries. I thought I would take you around the whole Tuileries, but I don't think we'd have enough time to go and visit everything. But I'm going to take you around and to see some of the really great sculptures. You can see there's a lot of work going on. And they basically kind of taking the horseshoes that go on either side, the horseshoe ramps here, and they're redoing all of them. But there's some really great, and I think right where the guy's sitting is my favorite one, but or maybe this one's it too. So there's these beautiful hands here. Let me go down and show you. And these are all done by a woman artist. Her name's Louise Bourgeois. And these were all done in 1996. But guess where these were before they were here? They were moved here in 2002. But before that, they were in New York, and they were on not the same exact blocks that they sit on here, but they used to be on big blocks where people would actually sit and they could look at the Statue of Liberty. So how cool is that? But she created all of these, and I love them because when I came up here yesterday, I really looked at all of them, and you could just see, like, that looks like a man's hand, and they just look like older hands underneath it, where these people are sitting over here. Um, like the hand on the top is like an older, you could tell because of like the way the knuckles look kind of arthritic. It's over here. I guess I could try to just, but look at how, I just love how these are. I'm just going to go over here and show you real quick. But look at her. It just reminds me of my grandma. But there's this one here. And it's like really, I love that one. I took a picture. Favorite thing was to always sit there and hold my grandma's hand. And that one just looks, it has like those arthritic knuckles. And it's just really sweet. So we'll head down here and around. We're going to stay to the left. So we'll come another day and do the other side of the garden. And I can maybe I could even, maybe I could start it inside the orangery and show you the water lilies, because you could get out of there without losing the signal. Going into the Louvre to leave like we did that one time a year or so ago, you lose the signal. So they're working on all of these. So the statues that are here, a lot of the statues that are here were once at the Chateau Marly, which is outside of Paris. That nothing is remaining of that anymore. I'm trying to get this thing to. Louise Bourgeois is the sculptor of those. And I was reading information about her, and I guess that she didn't have a fantastic relationship with her father growing up. And her the hands are kind of her protection of being held. And she was raised by her grandparents. And so, of course, I really love that story. But you have down here a couple statues, and these are statues or copies. So the original statues of these are in the Louvre. And this one represents the Seine and the Marne River, and you can see these in the Cour Marly, just over in the Louvre. And the gentleman, he's an older gentleman, he represents the Seine, and the woman represents the Marne. And these sculptures are all meant to be seen all the way around. This one on this side here, this is Tibet, but he's tucked away for the springtime but it looks like they've replaced and added all of these pieces, so hopefully they get but I think they're supposed to add some flowers and greenery into here. Yesterday morning when I came, the fountain in the center was on so high. It was probably shooting up another 15 feet higher than that. But I was sitting out here yesterday for like 45 minutes in the morning because it was so beautiful. And there's really gorgeous koi fish in this pond. Like a lot of times you see the koi fish, they have their things out. The koi fish, and they're black, but these ones were like the white ones that you see. Let's see if this is a new one or if this is old. Oh, it's old. So I'm waiting for them to put these in place that we saw last week. They don't have them still today. But this little rose garden and these irises that aren't in the greatest of shape, but this is paid for by Dior. And I think they're really only doing this because they take over the end of the Tuileries here and cover that basin and build a stage on it for Fashion Week 4 times a year and just cause all sorts of havoc, make it difficult to get through here. But that's nice of them. The other side, and the opposite side, where they have all those tents right now, is where the lavender is. So they have a bunch of lavender. Look at how pretty. Pretty purple. There are some peonies here. I had the hardest time today thinking of the word hydrangea when I was on a tour in the Louvre, as I was calling it their French name, Hortensia. And I was like, those big flowers, they're big, balls, and they're literally could only think of the French version. So you have all these ones around here. These ones are copies these are of the seasons, and those are also in the Louvre, the original. These aren't usually here like this, so because they just haven't moved them around, or maybe they're probably supposed to go around part of the area that's under construction. But I'm gonna go take you guys on this side because there's some statues over here that I really love. And first over here is this fantastic monument. But it is so nice. And it's supposed to be in the 70s and sunny all week long. And I'm pretty excited about that. No rain in the forecast. So this fantastic piece here, this is a monument to Waldeck Rousseau. And you can see it says RF there, so the French Republic. He was a member of the government. Oops, back. I was trying to move this. He served as actually the president of the French Council for a short period of time, and he was a big proponent of workers' rights. And you see these two workers here, and Marianne right behind him. But it's kind of a cool one. It's really cool from up above. There's something in this garden that every time I come in here, I cough. It's probably all the stuff that's flying around, the dust. But I love this one from up above. I took a cool picture. If you saw in my stories, you might be able to still see it in my Instagram stories for a bit. But it was built and created in 1904. A lot of the stuff you see in the garden here, it's like 1861 and later, because they took everything out in the late 1970s, they changed everything out again, and that's when they pulled a lot of the ones in here. So the first time my grandparents came here in 1972, I have a bunch of pictures of what the garden used to look like, and statues were statues that are now inside the Louvre, and where they were in the garden they did not put copies of those out. So that's kind of neat. I love this little, look at how cute this little area is with this little trellis up here. This is the kids' little trampoline area. But I wanted to show you these two statues. It's almost impossible to see them on the other side because of the bushes. But this is on the right, that's Apollo. And the one on the left is Jeannette. And these are, what I love about these is who did it. So these are done by Paul Belmondo. And a lot of people know his son, Jean-Paul Belmondo, who died, I think about a year and a half ago now. And Paul Belmondo was an artist. He redid on the Opera Garnier, where you have the dance that was somebody destroyed it, tried to destroy it with black ink. He is the one who did the copy, and he's done quite a few famous pieces. There's a museum outside of Paris, but he did these two pieces, and his son actually donated to the city of Paris, believe it or not. So we'll go down the side here so we don't go through and film all the little kitties. You have to pay to go in there. I don't know if they let big kids go in on the trampoline. But when I came through this morning, they were just opening. Maybe I could have gone in there for a couple euros. But years ago, when a friend came and her daughter, the time I think was about 8, they spent a lot of time at these places. But I love this little statue over here, this little monument. When I was here, walking through here a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, look, a squirrel. No, not a squirrel. It was a rat. You know how I kind of feel about that. Oh, this handsome guy having a photo shoot here. Now we're in the photos. So this one, see if you could guess who this is or what he did. And they've redone and put all this planting in. Okay, so let me see. Let me go up a little. Up, up. No, Renee, seriously, I saw 3 rats in a row here. One, and he was right here. And then I was walking, and the one was just running down the path. Mm-mm. And then the other day, I saw one outside the Louvre, dead. It's the only way I want to see him is dead, but I still don't like to see him that way. So this monument here is to a gentleman named Charles Perrault. And Charles Perrault, who's that little cute thing down there? You guess? Puss in Boots. So Charles Perrault was the author of such books like Puss in Boots, Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and his brother, Claude Perrault. I'm sure you're thinking, I know that last name, Perrault. Obviously, he was an architect for the Louvre, right, guys? If I've taught you anything. So Claude Perrault is the one who did the Perrault Colonnade, which is at the very far edge of the Louvre on the western side, and that he was the one who, or eastern side, sorry, he was the one who designed that. But later, his brother Charles said that he was actually the one who designed it. So Charles, like, you know what? You're pretty famous. You have Cinderella. You have quite a few stories that everybody knows. That later, about 100 years later, the Grimm brothers took those and changed them a little. So, but originally, those stories are all Charles here. He looks almost like Louis the 14th, doesn't he? Oh, Chrissy, you get A+ today. But I love the little Puss in Boots there. And then the little children dancing around. And it's kind of cute that it's here overlooking to where the kids are all playing. And they probably don't even know who he is. But it is kind of cool. His brother, the architect. Look at these. Look at how beautiful these are. Look at those leaves. It's so gorgeous today. The picture on my phone looks pretty good. I'm hoping it's getting to you guys that way too. I tried to change see if I could fix the settings to how it's recorded. I did a bunch of research on that. All right, Renee, let's hope we don't see anything on the ground running. Oh yeah, the Peter Pan in London. Oh, makes me think of Hook. I love that movie Hook with Robin Williams. But they're doing a ton of work in the garden, so they've been working on. They wanted to actually work on these beds, these little ponds, 2 years ago, but because there was this very rare uh, bird. Is it working out, Sharon? Is it not? Okay, let me try to go back out here. It shows up. It shows on my screen. When you guys see the picture, let me know. And hopefully, okay, good. Thank you, Renee. So I guess I'll show you these things from afar because I guess staying underneath there. Um, so there's this little, you can see kind of these sculptures over here. If I lose you, I'm going to try to go over here. If I lose you, just hold on, back up. And so you see these statues here. And those statues, those are actually the copies that are, again, in the Louvre. And this is represented of Atalante and Hippomene. And these two, Atalante was the woman, and Hippomene was told that if he was able to catch her and running, and she was really fast. And he said, he's able to catch you, then you have to marry him. If he doesn't catch you, then he's going to die. He'll be killed. So Venus gave him these apples and said, just throw these apples at her when she's running. That'd be really nice, right? So just throw these apples at her when she's running, and it'll slow her down and she'll fall. And so he did that, and he ended up winning the race. But then Apollo then was mad, and he cursed him, and he said that he could anything that he did, he would be cursed, and he ended up later dying. But the originals of that are in the Louvre. But I was trying to tell you before is that this little pond here, this little basin, they were supposed to have redone it 2 years ago, but there was this very rare bird that decided on its migrant pattern to stop here and to build a nest and lay eggs there. And so, because it laid eggs there, they couldn't do any of the work because it was a very rare bird, which is very nice of them. And so it put them behind. And so we're still waiting, though, for them to build up the beds around here. And last week, which felt like 2 weeks ago, when we saw all the flowers over to the side, they're still over there. But isn't it gorgeous today? So you have Caesar here. That's also the original, also in the Louvre. Julius Caesar, originally created in 1688. So some of these were added quite a long time ago. We're going to stay over here to the left, and then I'll end up there in the corner. And then another time we'll come and do all the ones on the right. This one I learned too, because this one is called the Oath of Spartacus. Let me go up. And not the size. This is the Oath of Spartacus, and this is actually Spartacus as a child. So that's little baby Spartacus. And that was a gentleman that was supposed to be killed. He was actually tied to that tree, and you can see the rope above there. He was actually tied to this tree to be crucified. And thank you, Angela. And Spartacus saved him. If you can see the little fingers there are missing. which a lot of times it's the arms and the fingers, I think, because, the main part of the body. But what's also really great is they have information on all of these things. They have plaques and those numbers. You can look those numbers up on the Louvre website. And so it was originally placed here in the garden in 1875. But again, that's a copy. And Louis Ernest Barrier is the artist. And there's a couple missing right now. And then we have Comedy here. She is, of course, an actress representing comedy by Julien Roux. You've got the mask there. How gorgeous is this day? Oh, look at that sky. So, so pretty. Here's the other basin today. And you see the Orsay. So I know tomorrow is a Memorial Day in the States, which I kept forgetting when I was talking to my friends Byron and Juan. And I was like, oh, yeah. But tomorrow is Whit Monday. So it's Whit Sunday today. Tomorrow's Whit Monday. But most everything, some businesses will be closed, but museums and all things like that will be still open. So you don't really have to worry about it if you're. There's only a few holidays that stuff all closes down. So this one is the centaur. So centaur is when it's a horse, the body of a horse and the head, torso of a man. And he is kidnapping Degenerate. Hopefully I'm going to be right. Block the sun with the statue. Isn't that cool? Look at this. Oh, sometimes I just love to come in here and just look at all the stuff, especially with that as a backdrop, the sky. But this one was done by Laurent Honoré Marquez, originally done in 1892. These ones are not, there aren't copies of these. They aren't the original ones in the Louvre. So sometimes those are sent to other museums around France. This used to be Hercules, but he's not here at the moment. And I'll show you this little gal over here, and then we'll kind of go over to the corner. But the boats are out today, or I guess they're gone now. They were here when I walked through about an hour ago. The boats, so same company that does the boats in the Jardin de Luxembourg. And I really like this one. I just always, I mean, especially in it's the spring, because this whole tree behind her is these great big pink, pretty blossoms. You go up a little. And so this one is Cassandra seeking protection from Pallas. And she was told that she was given this gift of knowledge. And so she knew everything. And then later they actually told her that, and Apollo gave her this gift because he said that because he wanted to seduce her. But then when she refuted his advancements, he then changed it so he cursed her so nobody would ever believe a word she said. And so here she is. She's worshiping up there to Pallas, who was the daughter of Triton that was killed by Athena, and she's looking up to her for protection and support. How about that view right there? That's the Pavillon Marsan. And last week when we were out here and we were talking about the Palais des Tuileries, as you all remember, that was built for the Tuileries. So don't listen when somebody tries to tell you, or somebody says online that nothing remains of the Tuileries Palace, and you'll say, I beg to differ. We know differently. That's the Pavillon de Flore. So this one you have Cain and Abel fame. And this is after he's killed his brother. We'll venture down into these cute little fellas are having like their own little photo shoot all around the garden today. It's kind of adorable. But I posted a picture and somebody on my Instagram said that the garden was looking a little ragged, but it's a process. It is actually kind of surprising. I mean, the grass is kind of long. This would not fly in the Luxembourg. This would not be happening over on the Rive Gauche. But yeah, look at all the pigeons are happy. So in a couple months, they'll bring all the goats here too. So they'll have all the goats out here eating away. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to get around. I wanted to go on this side. Well, we'll just push our way through. How about that? Keep taking the sights. And because I wanted to show you this one, the tiger attacking the crocodile. And this is by Kane. And he did a lot of animals. So there's Barry, who you know from all of his amazing animal sculptures that he did. And Kane, Barry and Delacroix used to hang out at the Jardin des Plantes, studying the movements of animals and sketching them. That's why they were so good at it. But Kane did the same thing. And he has a couple of his lions, his lioness, over on the Louvre, building of the Louvre. But yeah, this grass is kind of surprising. I mean, it's kind of weedy too, but I'm sure they'll be on it. Maybe they're on strike. There'll be another strike on June 6th, but it's not really, it's kind of a non event now. It's not really, nobody's really behind it. I'm sure they'll do it just because it's their way of getting out and protesting, but it's probably not going to affect things as they were at first. So, there's a few things that are missing, and there's another one that's missing from here. And hopefully we don't get banged in the ankle by a big, pretty hard ball because we're playing petanque here. So this little monument is to Jules Ferry. It's kind of a cool one. The poor Marianne missing her nose though. But Jules Ferry was he was a former prime minister of the Third Republic, but he had this huge belief in education. He believed, and he really pushed through that education was free for everybody. So that's here French people go to college, it's free. They're always astounded by how expensive it is in the United States. But he wanted to have a unified French language that was all over. He had some other things that weren't so great, but he was very good for education. I love that the little kid there in the front has kind of like his little school bag. And you have Mary on there. You can see the moon. Did you guys see the moon up there? But he lived from 1832 to 1893, and this one was done by Gustave Michel. Come on up. And on the back side, you have a genie that is holding a French flag up there. And there used to be a statue right here. Oh, we're not going to, I don't know if you'll be able to see it though very well because of the sun. Can you kind of see it there? But there used to also be a bronze right over here of a gentleman returning from the hunt that you can see here, the pavillon. Marsan. And that is now, if you go into the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, this is part of the building for what they use for the museum. And if you go in there and you go to see the rooms that were once the home of Jean Levin, they are right up there in that wing, and you can actually see out those windows. So if you haven't been to the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, definitely make sure you go because it is an amazing, amazing museum to go check out. I love it. Make sure that the permanent collection's open when you go. They do close it a lot when they're setting up a new special exhibition in the middle. They'll close down that side, which is always seems to be more likely than not that it gets closed down. So I will just leave it here today with you guys. So I try to turn it around and say goodbye. Yeah, the Sharon, I mean, definitely the Luxembourg, my favorite, and the Monceau is gorgeous. But coming through here yesterday morning, I was in here at about 8 a.m., a little bit before 8 a.m., and it was empty, and I had it all by myself, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it's just a different, because it's more of in the center of the city park. It's definitely a different feel than when you go to Luxembourg or more Monceau. But that's also what's great about them because each one of them is a little bit